This episode contains discussions of sensitive topics, including exploitation, coercive control, and trauma. Viewer discretion is advised. They called it divine love, but behind the hymns and warmth was a system of control and harm that affected thousands, especially children born and raised inside. The Children of God, later known as the Family International, was one of the most controversial and secretive new religious movements of the 20th century. Founded by David Berg, a charismatic but deeply troubled leader, the group started the ideals of peace, love, and salvation. But beneath those promises lay a darker reality, a doctrine that enabled abuse, a recruitment method based on sexual manipulation, and an environment where generations of children grew up trapped and harmed. Today, we'll uncover the story behind the group, the hopes it promised, the damage it inflicted, and the brave survivors who have stepped forward to tell the truth. And that is why we have a viewer discretion advised. This is one of the most heinous cults that we're going to be covering, mainly because it does have to deal with the exploitation of women and children.
David Berg,
the children of God.
The children of God.
David Berg,
Children of God.
the children of God.
Children of God cult.
The Family International.
The Children of God cult.
David Berg.
David Berg.
David Berg.
The Children of God.
The Family International.
Children of God.
Children of God cult.
David Berg.
Children of God.
Infamous Children of God cult.
David Berg's early years were shaped by a complex mix of religious fervor and family expectations. Born in 1919 to evangelical parents, his mother, Virginia, was a charismatic radio preacher who claimed miraculous healings that drew large audiences. His father was a conservative and strict minister who valued discipline and order. From a young age, Berg was deeply religious but also socially isolated. He believed he received divine visions and messages, which set him apart from his peers. His early adult life was turbulent. Several churches rejected him for his radical ideas, and allegations of inappropriate behavior followed him. These rejections pushed Berg further toward creating his own spiritual path. In the 1960s, during the cultural upheaval of the Jesus movement, Berg attracted a following among young seekers disillusioned with mainstream religion. He found Teens for Christ, which quickly evolved into a tightly controlled community centered on his apocalyptic prophecies. Berg positioned himself as a modern-day prophet, preparing believers for an imminent end of the world. His message demanded total surrender. Followers gave up possessions, severed family ties, and embraced communal living. Berg's mix of spiritual promises and authoritarian control laid the foundation for what became the Children of God. And I think at this point, being that this is episode 5, you can kind of see a pattern here between the psychology of a cult leader a little bit, right? At first glance, the Children of God seemed like one of many fringe religious movements emerging in the counterculture surge of the late 1960s and early 1970s. Members traveled the country in vans, singing songs, sharing their faith, and inviting others to join their peaceful community. The message was one of love, salvation, and the promise of a better world free from the corruption they saw in mainstream society. However, beneath the surface, David Berg was building something far more insidious. His leadership was absolute, and he communicated regularly through what came to be known as the Mo letters. These letters, named after Berg's nickname Moses David, were lengthy, often cryptic writings filled with theological instruction, behavioral rules, and detailed guidance on the group practices. The Mo letters covered everything from diet and hygiene to sexuality and family relationships. But many of the teachings were unorthodox, controversial, and deeply controlling. Members were told to sever ties with family and friends outside the group, labeled as part of the corrupt system. This isolation was a key tactic to maintain control. Obedience was paramount. Doubt, questioning, or dissent were treated as signs of spiritual weakness or even possession by evil forces. Those who disobeyed risked punishment ranging from public shaming to expulsion. As the children of God grew, Berg encouraged members to relocate frequently. Colonies sprang up around the world, in Europe, South America, Africa, and Asia, often in remote or poor areas where oversight was limited. These isolated communities were hotbeds of intense indoctrination and strict control, where Berg's doctrines shaped every aspect of daily life. The Mo letters became the very heart of Berg's control. Distributed in hundreds of copies, these writings were often read aloud in group meetings, making them central to community life. Members, including children, were expected to memorize and internalize their teachings. Berg's letters promoted a worldview where sexual expression was seen as a divine gift, but his interpretations quickly turned problematic as he suggested that even children had a natural curiosity about sexuality and that introducing them to it early was beneficial, a dangerous notion that laid the groundwork for abuse within the group. Many of the Mo letters contained highly suggestive content, sometimes supported by drawings or photos used as instructional materials. These blurred the lines between education and exploitation, making it difficult for members to question or reject the harmful practices. Over time, the Mo letters justified increasingly disturbing behaviors, framing them as part of spiritual growth or divine love. Berg positioned himself as the ultimate authority, often invoking apocalyptic warnings and divine punishment for those who failed to comply. The system of communication created an environment where abuse was not only tolerated, but framed as sacred, leaving victims trapped in cycles of trauma and silence. Just going through and reading about this is heartbreaking that I just think these children were not being protected, and it was to the benefit of some just dirty, creepy people within the cult. And it's insane to me to even think about that. In a dramatic escalation of the group's tactics, Berg introduced a practice he called flirty fishing in the mid-1970s. This strategy involved women using their sexuality deliberately to attract and recruit new members into the cult. Sound familiar? Berg taught that sexual intimacy could be a form of divine love and a tool for winning souls. Women were encouraged to approach strangers, including businessmen, hotel guests, and diplomats, to engage in intimate encounters framed as spiritual acts. These women were sometimes referred to as fisherwomen, and their targets as fish. Though promoted internally as a way to save lost souls, flirty fishing often exploited vulnerable women, some as young as their mid-teens, and expose them to significant physical and emotional risks. Pregnancies, STDs, and psychological harm were common outcomes. The practice extended internationally, with fisherwomen traveling to ports, hotels, and embassies worldwide, dramatically increasing the group's financial and recruitment reach. However, it attracted significant legal scrutiny and public outrage when exposed. Despite public condemnation, the practice continued for years, revealing the cult's deep disregard for the well-being of its members, especially women. By the 1980s, the Children of God was no longer just a recruitment-focused movement. Thousands of children had been born and raised within its isolated communes, creating a second generation, often called SGAs, or second-generation adults. These children grew up under intense indoctrination, with education focused almost entirely on cult doctrine and survival skills. They were often removed from their biological parents, living communally under the watchful eye of leaders who enforced strict discipline and obedience. Reports from survivors reveal a grim reality, though. Many children experienced neglect, harsh punishments, and exploitation. The culture normalized abusive behaviors, making resistance dangerous and isolating. Famous figures such as River and Joaquin Phoenix were born into the environment but escaped early with their family. Others, like Ricky Rodriguez, spent their childhood and youth deeply entangled in the cult's harmful legacy. Ricky's story, in particular, is a tragic illustration of the long-term trauma faced by those raised inside. The ongoing trauma experienced by these children highlights the profound damage wrought by the group's teachings and practices. As media investigations and law enforcement pressure increased in the late 1980s and early 1990s, the Children of God faced serious challenges. Authorities in countries such as Argentina, France, Australia, and the Philippines conducted raids on cult compounds, rescuing children and uncovering disturbing materials. These raids led to greater public awareness of the group's abuses. In response, the group rebranded multiple times, first as the Family of Love, and later as the Family International, attempting to distance itself from the controversial past. Leaders publicly denied ongoing abuses and claimed to have reformed. David Berg died in 1994, thank God, but his influence persisted through his successor, Karen Zerbe, who maintained tight control over the group and continued to issue directives in Berg's style. Despite the rebranding efforts, survivor accounts and independent investigations indicate that many harmful practices and dynamics remained embedded in the group's structure for years after. The legacy of the Children of God continues to reverberate decades after the group's founding. Survivors who escaped often faced overwhelming challenges, lacking formal education, social support, and coping with deep psychological trauma. Many found themselves ill-equipped to navigate life outside the cult. Isolation, depression, addiction, and homelessness were common struggles. Yet despite these hardships, survivors have shown remarkable resilience. Books like Not Without My Sister and documentaries such as Children of God, Lost and Found have helped bring survivor stories to a wider audience. These testimonies have played a crucial role in raising awareness about the dangers of cult dynamics and the need for support systems for former members. Survivors' advocacy groups have emerged working to prevent similar abuses and provide resources for recovery. They emphasize the importance of recognizing the warning signs of manipulation and control, not only in religious groups, but across many forms of power abuse. One survivor reflected poignantly, "Leaving wasn't just leaving a church. It was escaping a world built on control and fear." Their voices continue to remind us of the human cost behind closed doors. The story of the children of God is more than just a historical account of one cult. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, blind faith, and manipulation disguised as love. As disturbing as the group's actions were, the lessons learned resonate far beyond this single case. Across the world, similar dynamics continue to play out in different forms, reminding us that vulnerability and the desire for belonging can sometimes lead people into dark and dangerous places. Survivors of the children of God have spent years rebuilding their lives, often facing immense challenges in healing from trauma, reconnecting with society, and finding their own identity outside the group's control. Their resilience is a testament to human strength, but their stories also highlight the urgent need for better support systems for those escaping such environments. Today, advocacy groups and researchers work tirelessly to raise awareness about cult dynamics and provide resources to those at risk. Education plays a crucial role in prevention, teaching people how to recognize signs of manipulation and coercion and empowering them to seek help. This reflection also calls on society to remain vigilant, to hold leaders accountable, and to foster environments where questioning and critical thinking are encouraged rather than punished. The Children of God episode is a solemn reminder. Faith and belief are powerful forces, but when wielded without compassion or oversight, they can become tools of harm. By remembering these stories and listening to survivors, we honor their courage and contribute to building a safer future for all. The story of the Children of God stands as a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked authority and the manipulation of faith. Though wrapped in promises of love, salvation, and spiritual truth, the reality for many was one of exploitation, trauma, and loss. By sharing these stories respectfully, emphasis on respectfully, we honor the survivors who endured unimaginable hardships. Their courage in speaking out helps illuminate the dark corners where abuse can hide and empowers others to recognize and resist similar patterns. Ultimately, this tale is about vigilance, recognizing when belief becomes control, and understanding the profound impact such groups can have on individuals and communities. We tell it not just to remember the past, but to protect the future. And you'll see in episode 11 where we kind of break everything down for that, for the red flags. So make sure you're keeping an eye out for that as well. This has been Cracked Relic. And as always, my condolences always go out to these people and these families that did endure those hard times. And we need to just make sure that we're trying to take care of them and get them right. As always, sources will be down below in the description and coming up after this. Thank you for watching.